Hello.
Good
Welcome
morning.
to the Blindsided Podcast. Today is episode 8. Don't believe what you think. In this episode, we will focus on stacking. So we have positive and negative stacking. And we will also focus on questioning our thoughts or others' thoughts. And then we will also talk about, help me think, paying attention. Paying attention, where our attention goes, energy flows. Hi, my name is Charlie Collins. I am a speaker, a coach, and I am the co founder of Thriving Blind Academy. I help people remove their blind spots and create a vision that can move them in a direction of more clarity and positive future. And today, Brenda.
Good morning, Charlie. And hi, Stanley. My name is Brenda. I'm the founder of Time for a 10. We are an emotional awareness coaching service, and we teach people how to discover and change their conditioned thinking by inventorying kind of their behaviors and disturbances. And then today we have Stanley as a guest. Hi, Stanley.
Good morning, both of you, Charlie and Brenda. And I'm Stanley Dietrich, and I am the founder of 360 Life Without Limits. And basically, what I do is what my title says, or what my website is, what my business is. I help people live without limits, physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And that's what I love doing. That's what makes me wake up every day. And I'm excited to be part of this show and the conversation that we're about to have. So I will leave it to you, Charlie and Brenda, and I will be right here beside you.
Great.
Excellent. I gave us a little breathing room now. We were kind of tight. All right. So I'd like to open up with a little story, a story about how stacking came into me. And what do I mean by stacking? And it was negative thinking that can just kind of, as we know, ants, automatic negative thoughts. I triggered it. So I am using a computer with cameras and lighting and microphones. And a few days back this week, I decided that it would be a great time to upgrade to Windows 11. And I have a friend that said the accessibility is much better in Windows 11. Plus, there's so many other things, but I was going to love the accessibility side. So I put it off for months, and I finally said, I'm going to do it. So we had to make some big changes in the computer for it to receive it well. And once I did it, everything, and it finally took a long time. But when I turned on, like my computer wouldn't recognize my camera, wouldn't recognize microphones, wouldn't recognize the device that sends the signals and all this stuff. And I went, oh no. And then I did some testing, and it started getting worse, as in, oh, how could this be? Why did this happen to me? And then I have a special board in my computer. So now I've got to take apart my computer, and I slide this board out. And of course, I'm legally blind. I can't see where to slide it back in. This is ridiculous. Why does this happen to me? I'm trying to use a magnifier and different devices and lighting, and I am getting more and more tense. And I'm thinking, this isn't fair. So I finally get the board back in. I reboot the computer, right? And I'm like, okay, that should have fixed it. It didn't fix it. Now I'm moving into this survival, like fight or flight. I am actually like I drank 10 cups of coffee. I felt like jittery. I realized something is really, I'm like, what is going on? And I can't figure it out. I'm not stopping, reflecting, thinking, then acting. I am plowing through this, and it's getting worse. And now I've got the new board, not the new board, the board in. I reboot. I'm checking everything. I'm plugging things. I have wires everywhere, and I'm leaving the office, and I'm shaking, and I'm coming back in, and finally, here we go. This stacking that we talk about. I had a negative thought. I can't believe this has happened to me. Why was I so stupid? I never should have upgraded to Windows 11. What was I thinking? I should have left things alone. Everything was working fine. I'm such an idiot. And then my mind and thoughts all went out to prove that, it seemed. And boy, did it feel that way. So I finally surrendered. I said, let me question this. Is it true that I'm an idiot? No. I'm always an idiot. You know, it was that generalization. Everything I do, I'm an idiot. No. Do I make mistakes? Yes. Is it possible to take a different look at this? Yes. Could I possibly find a new way to connect to my camera and make this work? Because I have a podcast coming on Saturday and I'm getting nervous because Friday morning this was not working. I got to cancel the podcast. I got to tell Brenda, now Stanley, oh my gosh, and all the people, all the millions of people that are watching it. And I just started a new approach. I started paying attention to the thoughts that were leading me down the bad path. I paid attention to thoughts that would help get me out of this jam. So my energy started flowing to a more positive solution. And all of a sudden, I unplugged. I said, what can I do about this? How can I? And wow, it was amazing. Hey, look, here I am. And you can hear me. You can see me. And it's working. Is it perfect? No. Is it okay? Absolutely. And I'll tell you, once I rehooked, rebooted, took a breathing, I had to really step away and take some breaths and say, okay, try to look at this in a different light. Use a different lens, Charlie. How can you solve this? Yes, I can, but not in the mind that created the problem. I need to now shift a little. And I did. And then all of a sudden, the coffee buzz, the heavy caffeine dose of this autonomic nervous system grabbing hold of me, feeling like I had to run and hide somewhere, it let go. I felt safe. Everything kind of fell into place, and I could take a breath and start preparing for today's session.
That's a great story, Charlie. And you know what it was reminding me of? A few podcasts ago, we were talking about, I think it was in one of the early ones, about how when we get activated, that's to say, when we start to experience fear, which is what you were experiencing. Oh my God, it's not going to work. What about the podcast? What about this? What about money? How much is it, right? All of that. So the amygdala gets activated. That's the fear center of our brain, the fight or flight, the instincts kick in. And what happens for me, and what it sounds like happened for you, if I reflect back correctly, is, our conditioned thinking now pops up because the amygdala is activated and it's looking for, when have I been in this situation before? What have I done? So all this fear just starts to stack, like you said, and build and build and build. And unless you can ground yourself, and we talked about some grounding exercises on a few of the podcasts, which means to pause, process, proceed with purpose. You can do gentle breathing. You could do the nostril breathing, one side in, one side out. And then you return. Your amygdala is not as activated as it was, and you think differently. You think more clearly. And it sounds like that's what you did, and it worked really well for you, because here we are, and everything is working.
Yeah, I like that you brought up the amygdala. I call her Crazy Amy. So if you have any listeners that named Amy, this is not anything personal. I just call that amygdala that Crazy Amy because it's that voice that doesn't pay rent, that lives in your head. And it is that emotional baggage. And we begin to, our thoughts cascade. So as we're stacking, as Charlie's saying, it's like you're under a waterfall of these negative thoughts. And if you stay under that waterfall, under an actual waterfall, it feels good. But in life, when we're not under that waterfall, but it feels like things are falling on us, that's that cascade of those stacking thoughts. And they can run rampant if we don't take back the control, the power.
Yeah. And Brenda, and it's like difficult and troubling situation. Yep. And what did I do to create that? It didn't happen to me. It was me doing something. Okay. I'll be happy when my computer's 100%. Matter of fact, I need thousands of dollars. I need to hire a tech. I need the latest and greatest system. I need everything working perfectly because I am sick and tired of this. And something outside of me needs to fix this. And I went to that. Like if I just had the money, I would buy like a $5,000 computer and it's like, whoa, nothing outside of me is going to solve what I'm in right now. It's inside of me. So going to eat something, going to fix something else, going to give my attention somewhere else isn't going to solve what's driving me to take actions that aren't serving me or the problem I am facing. And Stanley, I love that the amygdala. I mean, it's that almond-sized thing in the back, and it's like, that little almond has some serious power to do good and to really drive us down a path that it doesn't serve us or those we help.
Yeah.
So true. So true. One of the things that I learned really only in the last 5 or 6 years is that when I'm in that really frightened state, like you were talking about, Charlie, and I can take a moment and pause, and then I play the tape out, like, really, what's the worst that can happen here?
Mm-hmm.
And it's never what I was telling myself in the moment. It's completely different than what I was telling myself in the moment. Because what's going to, when I play the tape out, what's going to happen is it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. The idea behind when is it going to matter in a year? Is it going to matter in 3 years? In 5 years, have I forgotten it? And in 20 years, will I have looked back and see how much time I wasted over that? And just take that inventory and go, is it really a life-altering situation? If it is, then definitely take precaution. But if it's not, think about that 3 to 5 years and some of the things, if we do a rehearsal and just do an inventory of what was it that really wrecked us 3 years ago and how is it really affecting us today? Was it a setup or was it really a setback that we thought? Or, was that problem actually turned into an opportunity? The obstacle turns into an opportunity that we didn't see in the beginning. It's kind of like a seed in the ground. You cover it over and it feels like you've forgotten it. You've left it. You put it in this wet, sticky mess that you can't see anything out of. And then suddenly it breaks through. And that's what our life is like. It breaks through. And then we begin to see all that, even when you put manure, fertilizer on top of a plant, it probably thinks that, wow, what did I do to deserve this? And that's where those thoughts come in. And then one day they get revealed and we see the light, like Charlie's book, tripping into the light. Yeah, and that's basically what's going on. So, yes.
Well, so we need to pay attention, but we'll get to that a little more because stacking, releasing, activating the amygdala, putting the fear all over the place and having it dictate the way I think is never comes out well. I mean, I might say something. I wish I wish I never said that. Now I owe an amends. Or I might have text something that because I'm in this state that I'm in survival, I feel like I'm drowning and I need to say this, do that, or get this, or become this. And instead of questioning, is that true? And another great question is, who would I be without this thought? How would I react? Who would I be without this thought? Brenda, you and I do this, it's like, is it true that my share at a certain presentation I did on a Saturday evening, is it true that it wasn't good enough? Because I'm the one who labeled it not good enough. Now I'm starting to wonder, oh my gosh, now I need feedback from people in the room. Like, come up and tell me it was good enough because I'm starting to hang on to this. It wasn't good enough. And I wish I never did. Oh, and maybe I said all the wrong things. And, I'm in my own head instead of just saying, is it true? Right. You got asked to speak. You did a presentation. And then all of a sudden somebody comes up. Thank you. That really, It's like, I don't need that validation when I'm in the right space, when I'm questioning my thoughts.
I love that, Charlie. Before I respond, I want to say a couple of things. I want to say good morning to Barb in Dallas. I'm so glad you're here. Barb's a friend of mine that I recently met. And I want to say good morning to Trish and all the other people. I can't list them all, or we'd be just going on and on, but I wanted to say good morning to those two people. And, Charlie, Stanley, you said something about being curious. When these thoughts come in, especially when you're activated, and if you approach them saying, well, what are you here to teach me? What can I learn from feeling this way? Instead of like playing with the emotion, diving in, it's like Play-Doh, right? I'm going to make something out of it. I'm going to build a story around it. This is always happening to me. This is like what happened last year. None of that is true. What's happening in the moment is happening just in this moment. Friends of mine say, look at your feet and stay where your feet are. Just be in right now. And then, like you said, I love that. Approach it with curiosity. Approach it with curiosity. And Charlie was talking about, and I've done this myself, like being asked to speak somewhere and then asking 10 or 15 people, how'd I do? Was it good? Did you learn it? Right? That's the not good enough. And that not good enough, you know where that's coming from? 30 years ago. That's coming from 30 years ago, not being picked for the kickball team or not getting an A in school or being bullied or being picked. It's not coming from today. Because in all honesty, today, what anybody else thinks of me is none of my business, because I'm good with me and I'm good with whatever I call my creator. And to me, that's all that matters. I'm here to serve. And the people that are served are served. The ones that aren't, I'm not supposed to serve. It's really that simple. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. It's just I got enough of my own energy to deal with. I'm not pulling in anybody else's to play with.
Exactly.
In this moment.
In this moment. Or from 30 years ago. It's not even here anymore. And I'm still thinking about it. It's completely gone.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic, that feeling of not being enough. That I would love to explore that on the next invitation. And it's those statements that we said years ago that have stacked, that if they're like books on a shelf that we haven't opened for a long time. And then we walk by that just in happenstance and we go, oh yeah, I remember, I do always do that. And this always happens to me. And why couldn't I be better? And why am I not enough? And as you're stacking those, that crazy Amy comes out and she just emphasizes what we're feeding her. And, it's time to say, Amy, enough eating my lunch.
It's our past episodes. I'll be happy when. That's a dishonesty. That's a lie right there. That's a negative stack starting. And, and self-pity. I was in self-pity yesterday. Why? I felt sorry for myself. This shouldn't have happened to me. It's hard enough being me. and it's like, wow. And Brenda, you said it in 7th grade when I got picked last in gym for when we were playing dodgeball. Why would you want to pick me other than last? I'm the blind guy on the team. I suck at dodgeball. So I give kudos to the captain picking me last. That's what I would have done if I was the captain, but it took a lot of years to figure that out. But that was my judgment on anything that I went up against, that I was on a team or something. Oh no, I'm not going to be good enough on this team. I don't play that game anymore.
There's one other thing that popped into my head when you were talking about that, Charlie, and it's do you ever notice how there could be 100 people in the room, right? And 99 of them pay you a compliment. Oh, you're great. I adore you, or you did a good job. And one person says, you know what, I really didn't like that, or I don't like that, or your hair doesn't look good, or, I really didn't like your talk. And that's the one I focus on. Forget about all of the other feedback I got. And that's the one I'll go to bed with and take home with me and play with and wonder and question and doubt myself with.
I will pray for you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah.
Thank you too.
And I want to say that majority of our listeners are going through that exact same thing. It is that one comment that, is impressioned in their memory, and they go to acknowledge that, it's either becomes a yes, I'm going to validate that, a no, it wasn't validated, or a maybe, now I've got to figure out a why. How can I make them like me? How can I become more than what I am when I'm already enough in myself? The idea, Charlie, that you talked about, and you mentioned, and we've talked about the 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and why going to sleep is so peaceful, because our brain slows down and we can't think, and it restores it. But when we wake up, we start having those same thoughts again, and they stack. And daily, how many times are my thoughts on Monday the same thoughts on Friday that are not positive?
That's where paying attention, exactly 85% of we wake up with is, what bills do I owe? What I didn't finish yesterday? What laundry? What has to be done? The food, I got to go shopping. What do we have for dinner? And then the other 15% of the future, I'm never going to make it. I got to figure out a way to make more money. And it's like, we're never present. And until you're present, you can't, until I became present yesterday, smack dab exactly what I was facing, I never would have gotten out of it. I had to surrender and go, what am I right now? What is in front of me? What can I have a cable in my hand? I couldn't even figure that out. It was, I mean, I was in such a high level of beta. I was a Ferrari on the highway in first gear, redlining, wondering why my engine is roaring so bad. And then it finally blows up because I can't slow down, and I'm jittery. And then all of a sudden, and a breath, and what a difference. But it is something that we need to talk about over and over and do and in my life, but also people I work with, they come to the table so worked up. And my gosh, if somebody had called me yesterday in that space, I'm looking down because of my computer. I'm a little mad at it still. Yeah, I'll teach you. But anyway, if somebody walked in and said, "Can I help you?" I would have been like, "Yeah, get out."
So I'm just going to take a break here because we have a lot of chats coming in. I'm going to read a couple so that we can have a minute to respond. Is everyone good with that?
Let me question it. Yes.
Good. Okay. So first, Trish is asking, why do we seem to default to the negative?
Nobody wants to go to that answer.
Well, I can tell you why I think I default to the negative. It's conditioned thinking. So I was raised in an environment that was very chaotic, alcoholic parents, lots of crazy stuff going on in the house. So that's where it starts. Our subconscious brain is programmed according to epigenetics, Bruce Lipton, between the ages of 0 and 7. So that subconscious brain is picking up all of this chaotic behavior. So I was trained to kind of be in fight or flight mode all the time, looking for the next danger that's around the corner. And so when we are programmed in this way, that's what we project out into our world. So we don't assume the world is a good place. Or for me, I didn't assume the world was a good place. I assumed it was a bad place. So I was always on the lookout for the next bad thing. And Charlie said it when he opened the podcast. What we focus on gets bigger. So not only am I looking for it, but I'm inviting it into my life. So that's kind of how I got into that place. I don't know what Charlie and Stanley's experience is, but I'm sure they'll share it.
Well, I want to know if your parents were my parents and you're the sister that I never had, because I grew up in that same environment. So we must have been neighbors or something. But that's the truth of it is that the negative, we're conditioned to find the negative, to find something that could be better. And when we confuse that, a situation with a personality, now we get that kind of clouded, muddy water, and we can't disassociate ourselves from the environment. So when we take it personally, then that's when the clouding continues, and it's like shaking up that muddy water. If you just let it sit, the mud and the dirt will settle, and it will separate what's unclean from what's clean. And then you can actually begin to see where you are, and you separate yourself from the situation or the environment, and you discover who you really are. And it's learning to appreciate ourselves, and we don't. This is a condition that we don't. I mean, look at the education system. We're graded from A to F.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember celebrating that I got a D plus in my one class. I was so happy that I wasn't failing. I was like celebrating. And other people are like, D plus? How do you get a D plus? Well, I go, how do you get an A plus? And it is when you can celebrate the D plus, at the end of the day, in 5 years, that class did not make any difference in my life. It was just the opinion of another person on my presentation. And that's how the story I'm going to stick with.
And Brenda, same thing. Diagnosed at age 9 with a rare eye condition. Age 13, declared legally blind by the whole state of Connecticut. They all knew I was a loser. And, failing in school, not good enough. Always wondering why I don't fit in. I'm never going to get my driver's license. So why do I go to negative? Because that's the only world I knew. And how could I get, here it is, an emotion, energy in motion. I did not know emotion. I didn't know. I just blocked everything. I just was angry most of the time. So, I don't wake up that way at all anymore. I don't wake up and go to the negative. I go to bed and I do an inventory. I look, what could I have done better today? Do I owe any amends? Have I kept my side of the street clean? So then when I wake up in the morning, I'm clean. My subconscious is clean. I wake up and I think, what a blessing. I feel so grateful. I was so excited to come and do this podcast today. Things are great. I didn't attach. It doesn't mean I'm still mad at you. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, but it means what I had to do. And this is not a podcast of healing where, I get it now. At least it wasn't for me. It took years of writing and looking and noticing my stacking, questioning my thoughts, asking for help, paying attention to what is serving me and others, and over time. And now we, as the three of us, practice. And I know many people on who are watching, listening, we have the tools to snap back out of Amy. Let Amy has that hold on us. We say, Amy, nice try. Go back to where you belong. I'm in charge again.
Love that. I call that getting out of the sandbox. I just get out of the sandbox. Patrick shared that our first thoughts are always wrong. And what you talked about, Charlie, about it taking years and working on it, it's true, but it only takes 30 days to develop a habit. And if you pick one thing, like being curious about the thought or feeling, and I love the example of questioning your thoughts. Like Patrick said, your first thoughts are wrong. I was taught that my first 10 thoughts actually on anything is based in my past experience, not in the present moment. It's based in my conditioned thinking. And so for almost a year, I call it my itty bitty committee. I'm not going to say the word on a podcast, but so my Amy, when it starts to get going, I would stop and say, when it would tell me something, the amygdala would tell me something that wasn't true, I would say out loud, that's not true. And I did that for almost a year out loud. When a thought would come up that was completely false, I would say, that's not true. And my kids thought I was going nuts. They were like, Mom's losing it. I'm like, no, this is really good. You should try it. They're like, I'm not trying that. But it really worked for me. And now it's a habit. Like, it's almost subconscious for me now. When something crazy comes in, I just laugh and observe it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going to swipe that one right by and move on. And it's just a matter of taking a split second and questioning whether the thought is true or not.
Yeah, you mentioned in the beginning, Charlie, where our focus goes, our energy flows, and we're more unaware of what's going on inside of our head than we are of what's going on in our environment. And the things that we see, we would think are the most important, but it's the things that we're thinking that's where our energy really drives us. Because, if I'm driving down the road and I'm having a thought, which I probably have multiple thoughts that have nothing to do with my environment, they're always going back to a rehearsal of a deficiency of what could it have been better, instead of how better was it because of the way that I did it. And it is, I have two granddaughters, and one, she wants to pick different colors. And if I were to say, don't use that color, it's not good, she would always associate that. And, Brenda, you mentioned the age 0 to 7. So it's what we were programmed in that first 7 years of our development, and then how that was impressioned from the teachers and enforced from the teachers and the bosses and the employees and the employers that we've worked with. We began to question our abilities, and then we rehearse that in our mind over and over. And we're actually the ones doing more damage by stacking those negative thoughts, instead of, hey, how am I loved? And how do I love differently? And how do I contribute? Those are the questions that I want to ask. Not do I contribute, but how do I contribute? And when we can change that positioning of the question, the same words in a different order, now we make an impact.
Speaking of grandchildren, I think I hear one in the background.
You have amazing hearing.
Yeah, but I can't see you.
Yeah, so I can see you, but I can't hear as well. So, and I'm okay with that.
And me too.
Yeah.
Because we don't see with our eyes, we see with our brains, and my vision is clearer today.
Yeah.
I want to so all this conditioning and programming, and God, who's in control? I mean, this is not fair. Somebody, all of a sudden I come to one day and go, who the hell's been living my life? And by age 35, the human condition is you are now operating from habits, values, and beliefs, and you're not even aware of it. And you are building a life based on a program. And that is scary, but that is very rewarding to learn that. Oh, and guess what the beauty of that is? I can change the program. Just like you could pick up the remote and go, I'm done letting this thing program me, the idiot box, the TV, or whatever. I'm going to shut it off, or I'm going to put on something that is better, that won't condition my mind. And my thinking, my revolution each day is only playing the same tape every day. And I'm not making much forward progress. And I'm wondering why I feel disconnected. I don't feel a part of. I don't want to play in that sandbox. I don't want you to come over to play in my sandbox. I'm feeling more isolated and alone. And it's like, and everything sucks. And then thank the Lord that I wake up to that, because I start paying attention to, is this really what life is?
Yeah.
And that's really what brought me to my knees, that I finally raised my hand and said, I don't know, and I need help.
Beautiful. I don't know. Isn't that the truth? We had a really good comment and question from Carrie. She said, what about conditioned thinking that we learn and think is right because we were told it was the right way to think? It's familiar, but it might be wrong. And to that I say, absolutely. Growing up in my family, there were 4 kids, and I had an older sister who was absolutely stunning. And my mother looked at me, and I couldn't have been any more than 7 or 8 years old. And she goes, oh, honey, you didn't get the looks, but you got the body. So I spent my entire life, right? My mother said that to me, my entire life believing I was unattractive, right? But I never weighed more than 120 pounds because I had the body. So to this day, I never go over 125 pounds. If I do, I'm like, whoa, that's all conditioned thinking. And it wasn't true. So it's not only, we learn the conditioned thinking by watching others in our environment, but it's from what other people say that we take as truth. So, when we're curious about that and we pause and question it, we can go inside and say, wait a minute, is that even true what that person said? Is there any evidence? I love saying this to people. Is there any evidence that you can say out loud to me right in this moment that supports this idea about yourself that you have? Where's the evidence? And most people are like, they never really stop to think about it. There is no evidence other than what that other person said.
And let me just say something quick to Carrie. Carrie, how do I react? What happens when I believe that thought? Do that to what your question. And then who would I be without that thought? And I started asking, who would I be without that thought? And I'm like, well, that's not fair. That's too easy. Well, stop thinking it. Well, hold on. So I started out my journey with a rubber band around my wrist because everything was, the ants were having a party all day long, the automatic negative thoughts, the stacking, the blaming, the complaining, the rationalize, the justifying, the excuse making, the defending my position, the blame throwing constantly. And I never was taking responsibility. And the only way to disrupt the mind that was really driving me down was I wore an elastic band and I pulled it out, snap, ow. Well, don't think that way. And then, oh, this sucks, snap, ow. Why does it suck? Well, it doesn't. I'm just sure I'm going to fail. Wham! No, you're not going to. Oh my gosh. And over time, I didn't want to do that anymore. So I started catching, stop, reflect, think, then act. And it came up on my computer every morning when I got to work, at lunchtime, 2:30 in the afternoon, before I went home, because now I got to shift and go home. That's a different mind. We'll get into that and transitions and things like that in more podcasts. But thank you. That was excellent. What do we do when we keep thinking it doesn't seem to serve me? But I don't know. This is the thought I do.
And I've got one more. Kate says, and I'm sorry I can't get to everybody, but this one really stuck out to me. Kate said, most people treat the present moment as an obstacle that they need to overcome. The present moment they need to overcome. Since the present moment is life itself, that's what jumped out at me. It is an insane way to live. And that's, I guess, by Eckhart Tolle. Wow.
One of the things that I would say, and people that know me, they're in my programs, I always say, challenge the narrative. So what is the narrative that is being presented? There's nobody that wears a white coat that is God. There's nobody that has a degree, more degrees than a thermometer behind their name that knows everything. I say challenge the narrative and challenge that in such a way that does it align with who you are and who you are becoming. And if you're willing to challenge that narrative, it's not just being obnoxious, but it is challenging what you've been told, what you've been taught, because we've been taught what somebody else adopted. And if we don't want to adopt it, then we can actually become who we were designed to become. And I remember having a conversation with my third grade teacher, Mrs. Biden, or not, wasn't Biden. It was, it doesn't matter. Begins with a B. And I remember getting soap in my mouth because anyway, but one day she told me that she was my boss, and I went home and I told my mom, and my mom said, nobody's your boss but me. So I went back and told the teacher that nobody's my boss but my mom. And so I'm my own boss when I'm here. This was in the third grade. And I was already establishing my own identity. And I challenged the narrative. Now, I wasn't an obnoxious bad kid, but I wasn't going to allow people the opportunity and the right to control me. Now, that's what I want to promote, is challenge the narrative. If Crazy Amy is talking, challenge that narrative.
Yep.
And reprogram it, just like you did with your computer. You reprogrammed, you did something different. You took things apart and you put it back together in a different order, and the same components put in a different order now work the way that you want it to. And you know what, Charlie, I take my hat off to you, because I would not do that. That is
You wearing a hat?
so, yeah.
And just as a reminder, Amy is the amygdala in your brain, the fight or flight part of your brain that just lights up when you become frightened or disturbed or afraid. And Charlie started the podcast with stacking, how those negative thoughts just start to stack one on top of the other, and we pull the past in and we build a whole story around it. And then Stanley was sharing about how we put that story on a bookshelf, and then we come back to it every now and again and read the story again and get more upset over something that's not even in the present. That's for someone who's late that just joined, to catch them up real quick. Sorry for the interruption.
Thank you. And I always thought Amy was that person that lived in my house. That was a nag.
So I wanted to comment on what Stanley was just saying about challenging the narrative. We like to call it challenging your reactive reality. So you have a thought, or you have a situation, you start to get all upset, and then another thought comes in and you just challenge your reactive reality, because it's different than the reality that happens when we're sitting here. When you get activated, a whole nother reality starts to form immediately, and you build up a reality that isn't true, and it's usually based in the past.
So somebody, I was out to eat with somebody, and they ordered like onion rings and garbage. Okay, that's my opinion, right? And then they ordered like a large soda. And I wanted to say, do you have any idea the stuff you're putting in your body? And I'm uncomfortable. And then I just said, I'm curious, and I'm accepting. And it's like, I don't need this person to be any different and to be on a different life plan. I don't need them to be on a different health or exercise regime. I don't need them to believe what I believe. I need to be present and enjoy their company and be curious about, why am I here? Why did I agree to this lunch? Why don't I just participate in the present moment and pay attention? Because the energy will flow and it will become a wonderful experience, instead of getting tense, like, and maybe I'm just jealous because that person had no problem eating that yummy food and I'm suffering with a salad, and a water. Don't you know how hard it is being me? And but now, of course, they had a heart attack. But no, I'm like it. So that's where I take this stuff. It's like, if I'm not comfortable with who I am, the direction I'm on, and the man I've become, and my being, not what I have, not anything outside of me. It's just like, can I sit in that space around things that I'm curious about and just welcome it in my day? I know this spirituality, this power is definitely helping me through.
And we give our power away. We give it away. We get to choose in any given moment. Am I going to take in that thought, that feeling, that thing the other person says, and play with it and respond to it and give it space in my head? Or am I not going to do it? We get to choose. We get to choose. Right, Stanley?
Yes, 100%. And if I might read one of the comments, because I think that it is more for than just one person. The comment is, I'm 51 and I don't know who I am because I live for everyone else. I want to say that you're not alone. And that thought comes to every person. What I would encourage you and all those that are observing is, don't attach an age to an experience. Okay. Take all of your experiences and say, okay, what can I do with this mixture? If I have flour and eggs and butter and sugar and good, healthy, organic cane sugar, I needed to say that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you put the egg in the flour first and you mix it up, then you try to throw the butter in, and then you throw in the vanilla, and then you decide that you're going to throw in the butter. You're going to end up with a clumpy mess, and you're going to end up buying really bad food because you're going to have a mess. But now if you put it in order and take the elements that you have right now, don't put a limitation on a number that's behind your chronological experience, but take your biological experience and go, okay, how much greater knowledge do I have now? Now, what can I do with it? What can I create now? And not allow it to become a limit going forward. So I want to thank you for the comment, because being vulnerable is a strength. And when you tell yourself that vulnerability is a strength, that we ask the right questions.
Yep.
And what is the right question? Any question is the right question. And that's where vulnerability comes in. So take those elements that you've experienced up to this point, and let's stack something of greatness to it.
Excellent. Well said. Stanley, somebody once asked me if I wanted to be right or happy, and I said both. I always am. and then, but as I've grown, and it's like, I don't want to be right and I don't want to be happy. I want to be curious. I want to be open. I want to have the ability to talk things through, work things out. And because of that, happiness follows. And it's never about being right. Really, what is right? It's like, instead of Stanley, you're right. It's you and I have some in-depth conversations at times. And it's like, we always come up with that's right. It's
right.
Like, it's just a better position that might serve and help others. But it's not like I get to walk away with, I got the right. I got the C-, you got the D+, so I'm right. It's like, that doesn't bring me value anymore. Being right, being connected, being curious, being open, being willing to change, and being vulnerable. Those are things that, wow, really help me enjoy this game of life.
100%. Yeah, I love it.
Brenda, are you reading not text messages, chat?
I was just leaving some extra airtime space for Stanley.
I got
get going sometimes. And so Kid Dog, I want to say hello to Kid Dog and Kevin. And Charlie, can you start that?
I'll bring it back to you. Don't you worry.
And Kate. Okay.
Hello, Kate, Carrie, Trish. I know you.
Okay. Wisdom is the knowledge of things that don't change. Intelligence is the knowledge of things that do change. Intelligence is the processing power that allows you to find wisdom and factual knowledge.
That's it. Now, why would I put that in there? I presented that to Stanley the other day. He's like, whoa. Well, I got to write that down.
Yeah, I wrote it down too.
Yeah. We got to talk about this. We could be in there 2 hours, and it's just, that's what we're talking about today. It's, is it right? Who knows? Is it wrong? Doesn't matter. Be curious, dive into it. What is wisdom? What is intelligence? How do they align? Is this person over here right? Should I only listen to this one? No, be curious, be vulnerable, be open. And it's not like, gosh, when Brenda and I go into conversations and do our thing, and Stanley and I, we never walk away. I never hang up thinking, God, I feel so good to have the upper end and be right. No, it felt better to understand a little more, to grow in effectiveness, to grow in understanding and effectiveness, have a little more love and tolerance, to have a little more patience, tolerance, and understanding. And it's like, where did that ever come from? That was not the man I was conditioned to be.
Right. Right. When you talk about being right, a very wise person said to me, as I was in a conflict with somebody and I was sure I was right. And, I was telling everybody this story so I can get people into my Ain't It Awful club. And then this wise person said to me, okay, let's play that tape out. So you're right. And does it change anything? Not a thing. It didn't reduce my pain in any way. Yeah. So I'm right. Okay, what's next? You're right.
Yeah.
That's the curiosity you're talking about.
Yeah, the seeds we plant in our mind. Can you imagine if my tomato plants got jealous of my zucchini plant because the zucchini had the space to roam and take up all the area, and the tomato plant was like stuck in this cage and it had to grow up straight, and it just said, I'm not going to produce because I'm not a zucchini. Can you imagine how silly that would be? Well, that's exactly who we are. We're a different plant, and we're designed to create a unique experience for the world around us and the world within us.
Oh, I just got triggered. I'm sorry, Charlie. The one thing that we haven't talked about that's really important, that little voice, we all hear it when it says, don't do this, or that's a great idea, or that little voice inside. Going inward and asking that little voice questions, I was shocked to learn that it answers. It answers. So you can go in and ask, am I right? Am I wrong? Am I not seeing this clearly? Can you help me see this differently? And that energetic little voice inside of you will give you an answer. When it does for me, when I close my eyes and I ask the question and I pause and give it space to answer.
Oh,
Oh,
couldn't agree more. I whether it's called praying about it, whether it's called asking your higher self, can you help me understand the best path to take to solve this issue in my life? Is it even an issue? And you, like you said, that lower self wants, that ego that wants to be right and run the show and get out of my face and blah, 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 blah. That guy, he doesn't like giving up control. Him and Amy want to have a party. darn. But stop it. I'm going to take control. I want to go ask higher self. I'm going to pray on this. I'm going to sleep on this. You ever heard that before? I'm going to see what my inner intuition, my gut. That's when this stuff really starts. I feel like, whoa, I feel connected to this quantum field.
yeah.
All right. Where are we at a time check, Brenda?
We are at 10:22, Charlie.
I would say we should bring this to a close. Any last short closing remarks?
I have one, of course. I'm going to replay this and write down everything Stanley and Charlie said. This was a great podcast, and I'm going to be calling Stanley after we hang up.
This is a conversation that we have with ourselves, and I think this is a great one to replay again and again. This video right here, go back and watch it again, share with your friends, invite people to experience this on their own. And thank you both for the conversation. It was unbelievable. So
thank you. And I want to share with you that I am not offended that Brenda is not calling me before Stanley after this call today.
We talk all the time, Charlie.
But I just want to be honest. I'm not. I'm happy that you guys connected and your left knee is going to be better. This has been wonderful. I'm always, the most, I'm embarrassed to say, but high as a kite at the end of these. And it's that spiritual high, that contentment, that place that I know all people can get to. And I'm so happy people were here to hang out with us and enjoy this journey. And I know I'm going to be rewatching it. And we're going to end, and we will see you episode 9. I will release the topic in the next days to come when it's brought to me. And thank you all for being with us.
Great podcast.
Peace out.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.